Adapting to today's car buyers, piecing together the scattered customer journey from Josh Allen, the SVP of Sales and Service at Gr1. So, take it away, Josh.
Thank you, Pepper, and good morning to everybody out there. Just from experience, I can tell you that the Gr1 socks that we offer are worth it, so please participate and take the time. I have 2 pairs, and they're the most comfortable socks I own. But thanks again to everyone for coming. I am excited to talk about this new car shopping experience. And one of the reasons it's a great topic for us at Gr1 is that we love data, and we're fortunate to have lots of it. We have tens of millions of unique car shoppers on our site every month, and we're able to collect a lot of it. We spend a lot of time looking through the data, as well as data from across the industry, to tell you the story. And what we found is more than just an update to the customer journey. We found that what used to be a fairly linear path, maybe a few twists and turns, but generally moving forward from left to right, has become more of a scattered set of experiences that culminates in buying a car. Different information sources, different channels, different devices. The customer experience is a more fractured journey than ever before. So we're going to paint that picture, then give you some suggestions on how you might be able to adapt. So the old path to purchase was pretty clean. You have essentially 5 steps here. You have entering the market, the research and narrow phase, dealer selection and visit, making a decision on buying a car, and then the longest of all, which is ownership. Now, it's standard, but what we saw in the old days is where, when it came to spending time, much of the time was being spent in that decision-making phase. So that required going to dealerships, talking to lots of different salespeople, experiencing test drives with different cars, and then ultimately coming to a final decision on what you were going to buy. Now, the time spent during this path, as you can see, was very backloaded. It was in the dealer selection and visit, decision-making phase, and then ownership. What we see now is a little bit different. It's a bit more scattered, and there's all sorts of reasons for that, but there's multiple channels, there's stops and starts. Mobile is being used everywhere, and we're going to spend lots of time talking about mobile today and how important it's become in this path to purchase in automotive. The marketing technologies we love with retargeting and social ads actually add to the fragmentation because they can just knock a shopper off track. The other big change here is that the time itself is front-loaded, and it's being spent in that research and narrow phase because of all the new sources of data and information. And so the consumer themselves, they have built an expectation of transparency and being able to collect a bunch of information. So before they even walk on a dealer's lot, they have advanced themselves pretty far down the buying funnel. So what has led to that change? Well, there's really kind of 3 majors here. There's one I just mentioned around the expectation of transparency and instant information. You think about consumers and what's changed with the Amazon shopping experience or the TripAdvisor experience when you're booking travel. There is an expectation of transparency and being able to get that information right away. There's a proliferation of resources to go to and to be able to find the information you're looking for, whether it's based on the reputation of the manufacturer or the dealer, getting pricing information on the car and how the relative price points are in that market. And then there's mobile. I mentioned we're going to spend a lot of time talking about mobile today because of how important it is when it comes to differentiating yourselves as dealers in the market. Also, 2/3 of all automotive shopping, not just on Gr1, but all automotive shopping is occurring on a mobile device. And 70% of the searches for MSRP or list price are done on that mobile device. So let's talk about the why. Why does this matter to you? Well, most importantly, I think the sales tactics that used to work in the past when shoppers were spending most of their time in that decision-making part, visiting dealers and test driving cars and literally kicking tires to make decisions. they don't work as well as they used to. And so what matters today is really understanding how to connect with the shopper so that you're able to continue success in what has become a very, very different buying market. All right, so we are moving into our first audience poll here. And the poll question is, how are changes in car buying impacting your dealership? Response options are A, car buyers are car buyers. We don't see much change. B, seeing changes, but our tried and true methods still work. C, seeing changes, but haven't been able to make changes yet. D, we've changed out marketing and sales strategies somewhat. Or E, we've completely overhauled our marketing and sales strategies. So we are going to get that poll live, and we'll get some responses here as they come in. All right, well, let's see if we can get a live view on what we have for results here. All right, so a little more than 55% of you out there this morning are saying that you've adapted your marketing and sales strategy somewhat. So it's great. It looks like there's been some progress, and I'm sure technology, the different types of technology that are out there have helped advance that. And close to 30% of you have completely updated marketing and sales strategies. So congratulations to that group that has clearly really welcomed the change in the market and been able to advance forward. So I think what we'd like to do here is talk about what our data is saying about this disconnected journey. We're going to walk through the customer experience and take you through each of the steps of the process and just share some of the information we're seeing. We're going to begin with entering the market. So when entering the market, what we're seeing is that consumers out there are starting with more information than they've ever had before. A survey we ran specifically asked about shoppers changing their initial choice between a new car or a used car. And what we saw is that actually 82% of buyers knew exactly what they were going to buy before they walked on the lot. And only 9% of them are changing their minds about that choice during the shopping process. So roughly 1 in 10 people who walk on a lot will change their mind, and you can swap them out for what may have been a new car expectation when they walked on. They realized, well, they can get a better deal on a used car and get a lot of the same features and functionality they were looking for. What else? Well, 46% knew the make, 42% knew the make and model. What I think is really interesting here is that we found that 32% of shoppers decide on the dealership before they start doing their research. So there's almost 2/3 of the market that hasn't made a decision on who they're going to buy the car from. So this is where, as a dealer, you really have the opportunity to win that mind share and get your brand in front of them, make sure they know that you're in play when it comes to buying that car. Now, entering the market, to enter the market, you have to have made a decision that you're going to buy a new car. And what has changed, as we'll see here, over the course of the last, we look from a period of 2003 to 2015, and we noticed that people are actually starting to hang on to their cars a bit longer. So when we go back to 2003, the average period of ownership was 4.2 years, and it's a trend that has changed and steadily moved upward over that 12-year period. We're now at a point where in 2015, it was an average of 6.5 years that people were owning cars. Now that's due, we suspect, to a couple of different circumstances, including economic, but also the technology that has changed in cars, which has allowed for them to run for longer periods of time before people are putting themselves back in the market. Another thing when shoppers are entering the market is that they want to move quickly. In fact, if you look at the top here, the top of the graph, we're seeing that 25% of shoppers are saying that their willingness or want to purchase is very or extremely urgent. So people are looking to get into the market, find the car they want from the dealer they want to buy from, and move quickly. The entire shopping process and purchase process takes about a little over 5 weeks. So it's fast from start to finish. It's not a long, drawn-out process. It's something that is going to happen incredibly quickly. So when entering the market, I think what we're presenting to you is that it's a fragmented shopping experience. And the takeaway might seem like old news, but it's got a few reasons behind it. You don't want to try to close the sale at the very beginning. They're going to do more research, so they just want to answer a specific question or confirm something they already think. So you can help them by being consultative, set up those deeper connections, and you don't have to give that hard sell. Give them the information they need to make their own decision. And if you're a helpful guide at the early stage, they'll come back to you later, because we're going to talk about some data a bit later on in the presentation that suggests there's not many dealerships they're going to visit during this process. So you have a limited window to win, and being consultative is going to give you more of that. So provide those answers and try to avoid scripted sales approaches that are predictable and things that they've heard before. So that takes us through the first stage. Let's move on to the second stage, which is where they're spending the majority of their time. It's the research and narrow phase, where they're using companies like ours, Gr1, and some of our competitors. But they're also going to the OEM sites, they're going to Car and Driver, they're using Yelp, they're using some of their local publications, whether it's a newspaper, an actual imprint newspaper, or the online version of it. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity to go out and dig up the information that you're looking for. And what happens is, actually, instead of clarifying their decisions when they're researching, they can get a lot of conflicting information, which can sometimes add more static to the process. And this number that we're talking about here, which is an average of 12 industry sites that people are visiting, guess what? That doesn't even include social. So when it comes to what they're seeing on Facebook or Instagram or other places, that's not included in that number. They're hitting 12 different sites during this research and narrow process. All right, let's get back onto the mobile piece here. So mobile shoppers actually bounce around even more, but they also make up their minds. So they'll use more online resources and they'll spend more time researching, although it's not clear if that's because they're more thorough or because it takes them longer to find and digest what they need. But it's another part of the fragmented shopping process, and some of that is simply due to how mobile is used. It can be used on your daily commute, when you're in line, during lunch, essentially when you have that fleeting moment of time that you're available and suddenly remember that you're shopping for a car. And it's also, a mobile device is an interruption machine. You're getting constant notifications from Facebook and text messages and pop-ups from ESPN and everything that comes through on a mobile device. So you will be interrupted and it will take you away. Now, it means that even though shoppers are using their phones for auto research, it's harder than ever to make real connections with these mobile devices. We'll touch on this a bit later, but it's essential that you're treating your mobile site as the most important digital asset you have. I would argue that if there's one thing you take away from this presentation, is that your mobile representation of your dealership is arguably the most important piece of digital real estate that you can offer, and is a great equalizer in the market when it comes to competition. So this would suggest that mobile shoppers aren't all that great. Well, it's not all bad news about mobile shoppers, trust me. The stat's been around for a while, but it's relevant here. While the research phase is long and scattered across more sites, mobile-first users are eventually getting the information they need to make that purchase. So what are they looking for when they're going through the purchase process? Well, not surprising is that they're looking for pricing information. They want to know what the price of the car is relative to other like vehicles in the market, and 80% of shoppers won't buy a car without third-party pricing data. The other number is that 80% of shoppers are looking for pricing content in their research. So, probably not a surprise to you, but it's the most popular type of content used during the car shopping process. So how do we summarize the research and narrow phase? Well, what we have today are consumers that are going to take their time gathering info from all kinds of sites and then come to a near final conclusion before they ever talk to you. To reach as many shoppers as possible, make sure that your website and mobile ads are really efficient and only show the most relevant information to a mobile shopper. Try having someone who doesn't use your site all the time go to it on their mobile device and navigate it. Is it easy for them? What about you? If you pull up your dealer site on your phone, are you happy with the experience and what you're getting there? What about your competitors? If you go on theirs, does that work? And also, be transparent here. The more your information between what you're offering on your mobile site and what you're offering at the in-person dealership showroom experience links together where there's connective tissue and the pricing's the same, the information's the same, that transparency goes a long way during this process. You want to test some new channels and measure that performance. So whether it's somebody who's coming in via an email lead from a third party or somebody who is coming in via a text message or because they saw a retargeting ad on a social site, whatever it is, make sure you're testing those channels and measuring the performance. And get your inventory on all of the channels that are going to give you that good ROI. You have to be really explicit about measuring the return on investment. So every dollar you put out there from an expense standpoint needs to have a measurable return. And mobile, mobile, mobile. Think about delivering your best web experience on mobile because that's where the shoppers are. We see at CarGurus about 80% of our overall traffic is on a mobile device, and that's where people are spending their time. All right, let's get into the third phase of the process here, which is selecting a dealer and actually going there to visit. So because of the heavy emphasis on research and decision making, when they do finally leave their house, they already know where they want to go. And this chart shows you what buyers said was the single most important factor in their choice of dealership. Probably isn't a surprise to you, but that 50% there is all about having the car available. And so at the price that they're looking to buy it from. So if you think about the other 20%, 15%, and 15% there, there's a mix of sales and service and dealer reputation and things that we traditionally think more about. But 50% of folks who are choosing a dealership are doing so based on the fact that they found the car at the price they want. Now the price validation through that process is even more important. When you think about what we're seeing on our site as it relates to the mix of deals, it doesn't have to be the best deal, but it does have to be fair. So this is CarGurus data. This pie that you see in front of you is a slice of what we see based on our dealer ratings. And as I described in the past, we have rated every car on our site according to how it's priced, considering the make, model, age, trim, location, and other characteristics versus the surrounding market. So the data here shows how the leads that come in through our site break down by the deal ratings we have. It's worth pointing out that all else includes essentially a significant amount of cars that don't get deal ratings, either because they're too unusual to have good comparable data or because there's crucial missing data or the like. Now, about 80% of CarGurus email leads are going to fair, good, or great deals, and that holds true across both franchises and independents on the site. We see a slight price advantage for franchise dealers where there are a greater percentage of leads on fair deals than great deals, which may be due to brand association. We're not entirely sure. But it's a validation step that's even more important in a disconnected shopping process because consumers want to walk into your dealership and feel as though they know what a good deal is for that car. And they're also asking for a variety of methods to contact the dealership. So, when you think about it, this is a mix of the various channels where people are making that connection with a dealer. So there's a widespread contact method preference, and that 35% still prefer to walk in and come talk to you live. But you can bet they've seen that car probably on another listing service or somewhere else. And this is where a cross-channel attribution system really starts to shine. So the ability to associate sales to texts or chats or emails or phone calls, it's critical to understanding what's working and what's not. The other takeaway, and please, this is one to write down. It's not about the dealership preference and how you want to communicate with buyers. This is about opening up as many channels as possible based on how the buyers want to communicate with you. So yeah, we look at the top there and say, well, 6% is text, so that's a small channel. Well, that's going to continue to expand based on how many people are shopping on mobile devices. So it's all about opening up the channels and making sure you have the support system in place to be able to handle all that traffic and how it's coming through. All right, so to wrap up dealer selection and visit, now it's having the best price is not what it is. It's not a race to the bottom here. It's all about having the right car at fair price for your shoppers. Make sure you're considering communication channels that your shoppers are asking for. So from a mobile device, whether it's text or chat, or being able to email quickly, phone calls, like the more channels you can open up, the more of an audience you're going to be able to secure. And having cross-channel communication that is consistent and trackable. So making sure that the descriptions that are on the car in terms of what type of trim and options it has is consistent with what the person experiences, whether they're on a site like Gr1's or your own dealership website, or they walk in and look at the sticker. That matters, and that's what's going to keep people both coming back and referring other people to come visit your dealership. So the last section we're going to review is the decision-making process. And if you recall from the earlier slide, this is where most of the time was spent in the old days when somebody would come in and visit 5 dealers, which we saw in a McKinsey study not that long ago. It was only 8 years ago. There was a McKinsey study that said the average number of dealers that were visited was 5. Well, that number has come down to just 2.1. So what we're seeing here is essentially the flip of a coin, meaning who you have a chance to sell that car to. Somebody's going to come visit you for a car, and they're probably going to go visit one other dealer on average. And this is across, these are averages across the U.S. that we're seeing from the data. So think about that. If somebody walks on your lot and is interested in a car, you essentially have a 50-50 shot at being able to secure their business. What we're also seeing is there's an average of 3.1 dealers who are contacted. So that's through a variety of channels that we just explored before. But that contact is happening from mobile devices, it's happening through calls, it's happening through visits. So it's important to know that when somebody walks on your lot, that number there, the 2.1, you essentially have a 50-50 shot of securing their business. And when they do come in, I bet a lot of you would say that you see them on their phones. And why are people pulling out their phones when they're at your dealership? Why are 60% of people pulling out their phones when they're at the dealership? Well, it's for a variety of reasons. The number one reason we see is that they're checking the price. They want to know that the car that they're buying and what they're interested in is at the right price point, that it's consistent with what they saw online, and they're going to get that. They're also going to check some other things around stock, dealership info. They might look at reviews for the dealership while they're there, but know that they're going to be pulling out their phones and just validating what they expect to see. The other piece that happens during the decision-making process that we've seen is that we want to know what's driving that actual customer satisfaction. So what makes somebody excited and happy about what they've seen there? And what we've seen is the most satisfied customer shopping experience is happening with dealers who are able to offer a simple and fast purchase process. In fact, we see that 94% of customers who buy from a dealership who does offer a simple and fast purchase process, that they are going to give them a high satisfaction rating. What we see, though, is that only 21% of dealers do offer a simple and fast purchase process. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and there's also a distinct competitive advantage for those of you out there who are offering that simple fast purchase process. Really important, especially when you start to think of some of the really large national dealers out there who realize that a long F&I process at the end when somebody's trying to purchase and drive away with a vehicle is not going to lead to referrals. It's not going to lead to high satisfaction levels. So to remain competitive, I would suggest you really try to offer that simple fast purchase process. Now, we've also, we and others have trained shoppers to read reviews, and what we find is that 68% of CarGurus shoppers are going to look at a dealer's reviews before contacting them, and actually a full quarter said that dealership reputation is the most important factor when considering to purchase a car. Now, this is not just from CarGurus. This is when you go on a site like Amazon, for example, where you're buying something, you're going to take a look at what the product reviews are for somebody who's purchased that. It happens on Zillow and large purchases when it comes to homes. Like, people want to know that the reputation of the person they're working with is good. What we've also seen is that if you have great reviews, well, it means that you're just going to drive more connections from sites like ours, especially. Now, you see the difference between a 5-star review and a 1-star review average for a dealership. We're going to drive 2 times the number of connections. So website clicks, email leads, phone leads, text and chat, all of that stuff, all the audience that we're presenting, the better your dealer review is, your overall dealership review, the more connections and leads is going to drive. So in summary, what we're seeing here is that shoppers who come to your lot, those are yours to lose. They are, it's essentially the flip of a coin. And if you live up to expectations with a simple purchase process that is pressure-free and moves relatively quick, is easy to understand, you're going to offer a competitive differentiator there between what we're seeing in most of the market. If you actively manage and encourage reviews, so even if somebody leaves a 1- or 2-star review for you, respond to them and just talk to them about the process, because what you're doing is demonstrating that I, as a dealer, am engaged with all of my shoppers. And even if somebody didn't have a good experience, it's showing the rest of the audience that, hey, this dealer cares, they're involved, they want to talk to their audience, and that if I come in, I'm going to have a good experience with them. And please make sure that the pricing and the packages and the trim levels you're offering, they hold up both online and in person when somebody comes to visit. All right, so let's summarize adapting to this fragmented car shopping experience. You want to deliver your best experience on mobile, which includes hard-hitting and fast pricing, offers, differentiators, whatever you have there, because that's where, when it comes to sites like ours, 80% of our traffic is coming from. And we know that if somebody is going on Google and searching and your dealership pops up and they click on a car and end up on your website, that's got to be a clean experience. Provide a seamless experience in how you're connecting to the customer, so offering lots of different channels for them to come in and making sure that you have somebody who's there to interact with them. The faster the better. If they submit an email lead and you're able to call them right back or respond right away, there's a high chance you're going to be able to close that person. And then the last piece of it is, and we recommend this to all of our customers because we feel it is so important, is to make sure you can attribute where you're spending your money and getting that return on investment. It's important to understand. It's really hard to do. We understand that because multi-touch attribution is a real thing, and people are coming in from a variety of channels and are being affected by different forms of communication. But make sure you can measure those dollars that are being spent. So you can do that for yourself and run a very efficient business and act on it. Let the data guide how you're going to spend your money going forward. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this morning, attending our CGX virtual event. I hope you stay on for the other great content we have coming, and I will hopefully see you in person at a future event. Thank you.